Chapter 2 is the 7 Hermetic Principles. This is just a very brief look at what the 7 Hermetic Principles are and is meant as a primer, an introduction so that you know what they are and so that we can discuss it further by laying down the foundational groundwork. The first principle is the principle of mentalism, and it discusses the nature of what is referred to as the all. So the all, as I understand it, is meant to be a omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent figure, and it is literally everything, even the things that we could not conceive, because we are finite beings and the all is meant to be an infinite thing. The principle of mentalism is meant to help us understand the world around us and how to intelligently use mentalism and reason to make changes in our world and to understand things for ourselves. The principle of mentalism also discusses further and reasons the nature of the universe around us and the forces that we encounter, how all of it comes down to understanding the mind, our mind, and the mind of the all. The second principle is the principle of correspondence. One of the core concepts of this principle is that it explains how if something is happening on one plane of existence, it is affecting the other planes of existence in a similar way. An example that I've heard other people discuss and that I've personally observed is the idea that the mind, the body, and the spirit are all connected, where if one of these bodies fall, then they all fall in some way, and if you improve one of these bodies, theoretically the other two should follow. So for example, people say that if you exercise your physical body, it should help you improve your mental health. And I personally find this to be true because when you are working on your body, the mind in a way will follow that. This is of course very general and it's nuanced for each person, but it is a lot of the basis for what I'm understanding and what I'm perceiving in terms of the different planes and the self. Outside of myself, I understand that the principle of correspondence is the basis for sympathetic magic, as well as interpreting omens, because when you see a particular omen in the physical world, whether it's phenomenon around you, or you're reading tarot cards or pulling runes, whatever you see or experience is a reflection of what's going on in the other realms, be it mental or spiritual. The principle of correspondence is a great tool to help us understand what's going on in the other realms by what we're experiencing in this physical realm. It is also a gate to help us affect the other realms by what we do here in this physical world. The third principle is the principle of vibration, and it says that everything is moving, everything is vibrating, and nothing is at rest. If we see that something is at rest, it means that it's what we're perceiving personally, and we're only seeing it at rest because it's vibrating at such a slow rate that we don't notice its movement. In this physical world, we know that sound and colors that are bounced off from light projected onto an object are both different rates of vibration, where sound is the vibration of, the air, and color is a vibration of the photon bouncing off a particular object. In a similar way, physical objects are vibrating at different rates, simply by the nature of their existence. Atoms are more like areas of probability. In this physical world, everything is vibrating at a similar enough rate that we see or perceive these other physical objects as at rest. And because of its color or shape or material, we know that it is vibrating at a different rate. The fourth principle is the principle of polarity, and it states that there are two sides to everything, that what we consider to be opposites are just two extremes of the same thing. An example in this physical world would be the idea of hot and cold, that at no point in the thermometer do we call something and say, like, yes, this is absolute cold or absolute hot. We simply refer to something as hot or cold in relative terms to how we perceive it. For example, a stovetop is hot, but it is cold in relative terms to the heat of the sun. In human terms, we could say that love and hate are extreme opposites of the same feeling of passion, this deep fixation on a particular person or object. The principle of polarity is important in understanding how to transmute our way of thinking from one end of the scale to the other by understanding how many different degrees can exist in between those two ends. The fifth principle is the principle of rhythm. This states that everything happens in cycles, everything occurs to and fro, back and forth. Everything has its ebbs and flows. There are certain patterns in life which are considered universal and that all living things experience, like the need to breathe, the idea of being physically born into this world, etc. But depending on how we act or react to it, we can change how those cycles manifest in our lives. An example of this would be humans understanding the way that seasons work. So, for example, we know that after the first frost is gone, we can sow seeds into the ground, and that is an optimal time to be sowing whatever it is you want to plant. And we know that during fall, or when the days become shorter, is when we should start to harvest these plants. Humans understanding the cycle of the world at large and using it to their advantage. The sixth principle is the principle of cause and effect. This principle states that there is no such thing as chance, and chance is just something that we haven't taken account of just yet. An example of this would be if you were to toss a six-sided dice. Theoretically, the way that we throw it, if you were a genius mathematician or perhaps a robot, you would be able to influence the outcome based on how you throw the dice. In a similar way, this principle teaches us that when we move forward and we see the effects of something, that we should pay attention to what might have caused it. I'm personally not saying that you should go crazy and to think that there's some hidden deeper meaning to everything. It's saying that sometimes there is a cause to the greater phenomenon that is occurring around us. The seventh and final principle is the principle of gender. And we mean gender in terms of the ability to generate something. Gender has its divine masculine and feminine properties and is very closely linked with the idea of polarity, but we're talking about a masculine positive polarity and a feminine negative polarity. I'm not meaning this in the sense of like misogyny. I'm meaning this in the sense that it is understood that masculine energy goes out and gives, and feminine energy has the tendency to take in, receive, and hold. This idea of gender between divinely masculine and divinely feminine principles appears to exist on all levels of existence, and understanding how these work helps us to generate what it is that we desire to see. Using all of these seven principles and studying them in depth will help us understand the nature of the world around us and the way that we see things and the way that others see things.